First, let's talk about some of my materials here. Of course, I've got my hoop and my cutaway backing for the back of my jacket, but I've also got some Burma thread here. This is a super thick, fuzzy wool thread that'll give us the nice texture that we want. We've also got 100 gauge needles here. Now, Burma thread is a lot thicker than standard polyester thread, so we need a much larger eye in our needle to allow the thread to pass through. So my Burma thread is a lot fuzzier and a lot thicker than my polyester, so it's hard to get it through the eye of the needle. So what I've done, I've tied a little bit of polyester to the end of my Burma thread. So I can take this, I will feed this through the eye of my needle, feeding the polyester through the needle so I can then pull that knot through and get my Burma threaded up. Let's take a look at our design. I'm going to go ahead and recreate it for you guys. So to get my text, I'll grab my text tool. For this design, I used my athletic script, so I'll go ahead, type that out. Then once I'm done typing this, I'm actually going to change my line type to envelope. I want to give my text a nice even curve to it. I could just use my arc line type, but I don't really like the way this arcs, especially for a jacket back. I kind of want my ends to be a little bit more square. So we will grab our envelope type, then we're going to right click, go to properties, then here under the lettering tree, we will see this preset box for our line type. So I'm going to click that, select double bridge up, and then hit apply and OK. You'll see it gives our text a nice smooth curve. That's exactly the look I'm after, so I'll just go ahead, scale this up. To get my micro chenille look, I do need these letters to be a fill stitch. Now, if I just change my stitch type here to fill, you'll see that each letter is still separated in its own little pieces, and we've got some crazy stitch directions going on here, but I want it all to be one solid flat piece. So instead of just selecting my fill stitch from my stitch type here, I'm actually going to convert this font to a complex fill element. Now, I could just grab my complex fill tool and trace the outline of my shape and go from there, but to save some time, I'm going to select my change element type tool. Then I'm going to go to complex fill, and then hit replace. So that takes each letter and creates a complex fill outline for it. It's still not one piece like I want it to be, so I will just select all of my letters together, then grab this Combine Elements tool. Once I've selected that, you'll see everything is one piece now. Now to get this to work as my micro chenille, I do need to change a bunch of settings. The way micro chenille works is you're basically sewing a bunch of super close, super long loops of thread. So I do need to trick out my settings quite a bit to accommodate for that. So we will go ahead and open my properties menu. Now under my density here, I'm actually going to raise this to 15 points. You'll see once I apply that, my stitches do look super loose. That's mainly to accommodate for the extra thickness of the Burma thread that we'll be using, but also allows us to get some of those longer stitches here in a moment. I'm also going to change my stitch length to 28. Now, I know this is a very specific number, but this will give us stitches that are much closer together to allow our loops to look a little bit more dense than if we just left this at 40. If we were to leave this at 40, we'd get a look more like a bird's nest than that fuzzy, furry look we're after. Now, from here, I do need to change some of my underlay settings. So we're going to uncheck my auto underlay, and we'll trick this out. We do want 2 layers of fill underlay. Our densities will be around 50, just like I already have it. And our stitch lengths will also be, actually, we're going to raise these to around 50 points, because we do not need these to be as close together as we do for the top stitching. If we had these at 30 or 28 as well, we would just be slamming our garment with a bunch of unnecessary needle penetrations. Make sure that your angles are around 45 and 135. This will ensure that we've got this nice diagonal grid behind our text. I'm also going to change my top stitching stitch angle to 90 degrees, just so we get a nice flat line. The reason why I changed this to 90 is I'm actually going to duplicate this. Now, you might be good with just the one layer of text like I initially had it, but I find that the loops in your Burmalana stitches start to look kind of sparse if you leave it with just one layer. So I'm going to create that second fill. We're going to open our properties. We are going to disable the underlay because I don't need those. And then we are going to do a totally perpendicular stitch angle. So if I have my first layer set to 90, I'm going to change my second layer to 180, just so we get a full grid of top stitching covering this. This will give our micro chenille a very tight looped look. Now from here, we just need to create the borders like I have on here. To do that super quickly, I'm just going to use my change element type tool once again. We'll select our single line center tool and then click add instead of replace. This will create a nice satin border. It will fill the holes automatically. We will just change that color. From here, I will make my border much thicker. I would say at least around 30 points or so. We will have a lot of looser loops on the edges of our micro chenille, so I just want my border wide enough to fully cover that. I'd also suggest using a edge walk and a zigzag or double zigzag underlay to really seal those edges up nicely. From here, you can add any other embellishments like these little seagulls that I have around the logo. I just digitize these using column 2 tools, just over some clip art I found on Google. Now that our design is ready, we'll take this over to the machine. All right, I've got my back design loaded up here, so I'll go into my color sequence. I'll go ahead and change my colors. Now this first color block will be my micro chenille, so I'm not only sewing it with my Burmalana thread, but I'm also adding our micro chenille style to the thread. You'll see it change the icon there. This will tell my machine to feed more thread to accommodate for the design and get that loop look that we're after. I'm also adding an applique stop after my orange color block. What that'll do is after it sews the orange, it'll push my hoop forward so I can lay a piece of topper down there. It'll also allow me to change my settings to accommodate for the black thread. Once that's done, we'll hit the green check mark and we're ready to sew. Now that our jacket is on the machine, we can start sewing. Now that our micro chenille is done sewing, I'm going to take some canned air and blow off any lint that might have collected on my garment. Now I will take some nippers and I'm going to trim any loose threads that might be hanging off the edges of my embroidery, as I do not want these to get sewn underneath my border. Then I'll take a piece of topper, lay it on top right there. Then I'll increase my speed to around 1,000 stitches per minute and hit start. Now that's done sewing, we'll go ahead and take it off the machine. And here's what we've got. I'll go ahead and rip away most of this topper. There's still a bunch of topper in my letters here, but I'll go ahead and pluck those out with some tweezers. Now that I've got most of my topper peeled off, I'll just take some tweezers and I'll pick some of these larger pieces out from inside my letters. Now, admittedly, the topper might have been unnecessary on this, but I think it's more of a fail-safe than anything, so it doesn't hurt to use it. Plus, I think it gives our border a bit cleaner of a look. Now, for some of these smaller gaps, like in between the holes of the L's or here in between the A and the G, you could take a spray bottle and some water, spritz it, and then take your excess that you've ripped off to kind of dab up those pieces, but I'm not too concerned about those. So we will peel those off. I'd also suggest if you've got a bunch of jump stitches in your design to go ahead and trim those while you've still got the topper on here, just so you don't scar your garment. Once you're done sewing micro chenille, make sure you blow some lint out of your rotary hook. I'd probably suggest going ahead and doing your daily maintenance, but I know I'm going to sew some more micro chenille here in a second, so I'll save my oiling for later. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and hoop the front of my jacket. General rule of thumb for left chest placement, we want to kind of bisect this line coming down from the collar, and roughly the lower third of the armpit, I think, is a pretty good spot usually. So since this has buttons on the front, I'm just going to pop the front of this open, lay in my hoop, and then I've got 2 layers of cutaway backing that I'll lay on top of that. Bring my jacket back over. Now you can, I don't know if you can really see on camera the rough outline of my hoop, but I've got it centered roughly right about here. So once I'm done, I'm going to hold the larger tab on the bottom of my mighty hoop just to keep it secure, while I lock the top of my mighty hoop in, gently rock it back. Now this is ready to go on the machine. Now that the back's done and I've got my left chest hooped up, go ahead and throw this on the machine. Make sure we're not going to sew to ourselves, then we'll get it started. Okay, same procedure as last time. I'll gently blow off any lint or dust that might be here. And I don't see any loose loops of thread to trim, so I'll just lay my topper on there. And I'll raise my speed back to around 1,000, and we should be good to go. Now that the border of my M is done, I'm going to remove this excess topper. I'm going to sew some letters around this, so I didn't want to remove this from those letters later on. So I'll hit start and keep going. All right, now that our left chest logo is done, we'll go ahead and take this off the machine. Here's the final product. Go ahead and take this out of the hoop. Look at another look at our left chest logo over here. Now look at the back.